My husband Qingjing and I are a harmonious couple, blessed with a son and a daughter. Everyone says that as the daughter of a merchant, I was born under a lucky star to marry Qingjing. I wholeheartedly agree. Reborn back to the age of 16, I held an embroidered ball in my hands, waiting quietly for the newly crowned top scholar to ride through the streets. But Qingjing simply waved away the embroidered ball. He didn't even care who it hit. It was as though, no matter whom I married in this life, it had nothing to do with him. I suddenly realized, in this life, Qingjing wanted to change wives. Later, the man I married was the one he had personally hit with the embroidered ball. Chapter 1. I was reborn to the day I threw the embroidered ball at 16. I hesitated not a moment and waited quietly for Qingjing to appear. Today was the grand day when the newly appointed scholars paraded through the streets on horseback. Zhuangyuan Street was bustling with people. As the top scholar, Qingjing was naturally at the front of the procession. I couldn't wait to see him. Recalling my past life, we were harmonious and respectful toward each other. Qingjing rose through the ranks to become a cabinet minister. And I, a merchant's daughter, became a noblewoman. Though our life had its ups and downs, it was still considered a fortunate marriage. Therefore, in this new life, I remain firmly committed to him. When the procession began, the crowd grew even more chaotic. I spotted Qingjing immediately. At this moment, he was in the prime of his youth, radiating the elegance and charm of a nobleman. In my previous life, Qingjing died 10 years before I passed away. Now, seeing this long-lost acquaintance again, I was so excited that I failed to notice the gloom and worldliness on Qingjing's face. The maid Annal urged, "Miss, look! The top scholar and the third-place scholar have arrived." Although the Shin family was a merchant family, they were wealthy and occasionally took on imperial government contracts. As the eldest daughter, I had always planned to expand the family's influence. Therefore, the husband I chose could not be just anyone. I had already met Qingjing half a year ago. He had just arrived in the capital, unfamiliar with the place, and had been robbed of his travel money by bandits. I admired his appearance and intellect, and since he was an educated man, I offered to help him. I invited him to stay at the inn under the Shin family's name and gave him some silver. Qingjing had said that he would repay even the smallest kindness with great gratitude. I did not expect him to repay me. I certainly had no intention of using his gratitude to my advantage. However, we were both young and full of passion, and he had repeatedly expressed his feelings for me. We had exchanged our feelings. That is why I chose to select him as my husband today. I held the embroidered ball, my eyes fixed on Qingjing. When he passed beneath the golden pavilion, I threw the ball toward him. I thought everything would be the same as in my previous life. But Qingjing raised his head, his deep eyes as still as a well, showing no emotion or affection. He simply raised his arm and deflected the embroidered ball. In the moment we locked eyes, my heart skipped a beat. Something was wrong. This wasn't the way Qingjing usually looked at me. The embroidered ball, which had veered off course, landed on the burly man standing in the corner of the long street under everyone's gaze. The crowd gasped. Annal's mouth opened wide, and she screamed, "Aw, miss! You missed! You missed!" The smile froze on my face. Qingjing averted his gaze, breaking our eye contact. He rode his horse forward slowly, continuing his procession. He didn't care about the silk ball at all. He didn't care who it ultimately hit. He didn't want to marry me again, nor did he care who I would marry. He had casually discarded my entire future. In this life, he wanted to marry someone else. The incident had occurred too suddenly. It was completely beyond my expectations. My father, an emotionally volatile merchant, shed tears easily. How could my daughter from the Shin family marry a beggar? My mother, though beautiful, was strong, and she slapped the table so hard that the tea set trembled. Now that it's come to this, the Shin family can't go back on our word. That Qinjing is a man who breaks his promises. If I'd known this, my son shouldn't have chosen a husband from the list. If he didn't want to marry me, he shouldn't have just handed the embroidered ball to someone else. My younger brother puckered his lips. I told you so. A man with a head full of books isn't necessarily a good person. My hands and feet grew cold, and I gradually realized something. Qinjing might have been reborn as well. But in our previous life, we were a loving couple. Why would he suddenly change his mind? If I said I wasn't hurt at all, that would be a lie. But I am not a woman who wallows in sorrow. Since the matter has already occurred, complaining and crying will solve nothing. As the family was shrouded in gloom, a deep, magnetic voice echoed through the air. He seemed to have not spoken in a long time. His voice hoarse yet pleasant. I am not a beggar. My family resides in the eastern part of the city, my surname is Ji. And my name is Ningxing. I've been working in the capital these past few days and couldn't return home to change my clothes. Which is why I've fallen on hard times. Miss, please rest assured. I will not take advantage of you. Once the crowd disperses, I will leave on my own. This marriage can be called off. Hearing that familiar name, my heart skipped a beat. Ji Ningxing. In my previous life, he was a renowned general who had achieved great military glory. He lost his parents at a young age and raised his younger siblings alone. At the age of 20, he was conscripted into the army and sent to the battlefield. Later, he fought his way to military honors with his bare hands and died on the battlefield at the age of 30. I had once lamented his untimely death. At that moment, the tall man stood straight, showing no sign of weakness despite his poverty. Ji Ningxing had a pair of handsome almond-shaped eyes. I had once seen him riding a warhorse, returning triumphantly to the capital. A scene completely different from the man before me, whose face was covered in soot. Seeing that Ji Ningxing was not tempted by wealth, his father was overjoyed. That's wonderful. If you are willing to give up the marriage, the Shin family will not treat you badly. Bring the silver. Ji Ningxing raised his hand to stop him. Mr. Shen, there is no need for this. The lady's embroidered ball was not thrown at me, and I did not take it for myself. It was purely an accident. I will not accept the silver. Father and mother exchanged glances. But if others find out that the Shin family has gone back on its word and refused the marriage, we will be despised by all. The Shin family's business was vast, and they had made many enemies over the years. Merchants valued profit, but credibility was the most important thing. Losing credibility means losing the trust of the people. Moreover, the incident of the embroidered ball has already spread throughout the city. Ji Ningxing furrowed his brows. He didn't seem like a foolish brute. He quickly understood the situation and suggested, why don't I clarify to the outside world that it was I who abandoned the marriage and refused the proposal? This way, we can preserve the reputation of the Shin family and the young lady. Ji Ningxing had spoken so decisively that I couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for him. My father and mother also sighed in relief. My father insisted on sending silver as a gift. However, I made a decision: this marriage, I will accept it and not call it off. Ji Ningxing, I will ask you only one thing: are you willing to marry me? Qinjing wants to change brides. I can't very well go and cling to him. People must always look forward. Ji Ningxing was tall and muscular, standing a full head taller than me. He had a pair of handsome phoenix-like eyes, with dark, bright pupils. Unfortunately, his face was too dirty to discern his true features. Under my gaze, his eyes flickered with panic for a moment. After a brief hesitation, he composed himself and said, I am unworthy of the young lady. That was a refusal. With that, Ji Ningxing clasped his hands together and turned to leave. As I studied him, I noticed the shoes on his feet. They were worn out, and his big toe was exposed. Thinking of Ji Ningxing dying at the age of 30, I felt a pang of sympathy. In that battle, Ji Ningxing defended the city to the death, holding out for a month without food or supplies. Because of his perseverance, reinforcements arrived in time to protect the border. At that time, I was in the neighboring city. A surge of inexplicable emotions welled up in my heart. I did not know why I had been reborn, but it was certainly not to marry Qinjing again. Since Qinjing wanted to replace his wife, I wanted a new beginning as well. I called out to Ji Ningxing. Wait! Ji Ningxing stopped and turned his face toward me. I asked, Brother Ji, how old are you? He lowered his eyes slightly but remained polite and composed. I will turn 19 next month. That meant he had only 1 year left before he would be conscripted into the army. In my previous life, he endured 10 years of hardship, even losing an arm, before becoming a general, known as the one-armed general. Why did I feel that someone like him shouldn't have ended up that way? The sky had turned dark outside, and it was pouring rain. I took the opportunity to persuade him. The rain is too heavy. You won't be able to return in a hurry. Why not stay the night? Ji Ningxing furrowed his brows in hesitation, but I didn't give him a chance to refuse. Someone, take Brother Ji to the side courtyard and send him some food. Oh, and prepare a set of suitable clothes and shoes. With such heavy rain, it would be completely dark soon. How could he possibly make the journey? The servants obeyed and escorted Ji Ningxing to the side courtyard. Ji Ningxing glanced outside at the rain, then bowed and said, Thank you. I'll be staying here tonight. Despite his ragged appearance, this man truly had an air of nobility. His father and mother sighed repeatedly. Thank heaven. This Mr. Ji is a decent man who doesn't insist on his demands. Qinjing is really too much. If he doesn't want to marry my daughter, he shouldn't have thrown the embroidered ball to someone else. That's right. If it weren't for our good luck this time, our daughter would have been ruined. Does Qinjing not worry that the embroidered ball might have been thrown to a beggar? I also silently exhaled a breath of relief. The embroidered ball hit Ji Ningxing. This was truly a stroke of luck in misfortune. That night, it rained heavily all night long. I was half asleep, unable to distinguish between reality and a dream. I dreamed of the day Qinjing died. He died in the line of duty, killed while suppressing bandits. When the imperial troops found him, he was holding a kidnapped official's child in his arms. He had protected the child with his life, saving it from certain death. Qinjing was always cold and aloof, keeping others at a distance. He had no female companions, and our relationship was always formal and respectful. Even our own children didn't receive much warmth from him. I never imagined he would risk his life to protect a stranger's child. The next morning, I was awakened by Anil, who exclaimed, Miss, that faithless man has come to the door. I reacted a moment too late, realizing that the faithless man Anil was referring to was Qinjing. I dressed and washed, then went to see Qinjing. Some things were already decided, but I wanted an answer. When I saw Qinjing, he was wearing a deep blue brocade robe, having shed his poverty-stricken appearance, standing with his hands behind his back. He still looked young, but there was an air of authority from his time in officialdom. He had indeed been reborn. I walked over to him. As soon as Qinjing saw me, he nodded slightly and stated his purpose. Miss Xin, these items were gifts you gave me in the past. I am now returning them in full. Additionally, this silver is my compensation to you. I casually glanced at the writing implements, rare books, and jade paperweight he had brought. They were indeed all items I had given him before. I smiled and asked, Why? In my previous life, he had accepted my embroidered ball, and after our wedding, he remained as tender and loving as before. Though we had no vows of eternal love, there had been no unpleasant incidents between us. The Shin family had done everything to support him, arranging everything for him, spending money everywhere to pave his way and help him rise to power. He had played the role of a qualified son-in-law of the Shin family. I simply couldn't understand why, after being reborn, he had become so cold toward me. Looking at the familiar yet face before me, I unconsciously reached out my hand, wanting to touch the young man who had once been my husband. This gesture had nothing to do with romance. It was merely a longing for the past. Little did I know, Qinjing suddenly reached out and brushed my hand away. The ground had been rained on, and moss had begun to grow. I lost my balance and stumbled to the side. Just as I thought I was about to collide with the Taihu stone, my waist tightened, and I was caught securely. I turned around and saw Ji Ningxing's face. He had changed into clean clothes and washed his face. This man was quite handsome. Unlike Qinjing's scholarly demeanor, he was more masculine and handsome. My hands grabbed his collar, but his body was too strong, and I couldn't hold on. Seeing that I was steady, Ji Ningxing immediately let go and took a step back, keeping his distance from me. "Miss Shin, be careful." At that moment, it wasn't just me who was stunned by Ji Ningxing's appearance. Qinjing was also taken aback. He recognized Ji Ningxing. In their previous lives, they had served in the same court, and Ji Ningxing had later become a renowned general. Qinjing couldn't possibly have forgotten him. "It's you," Qinjing continued. "You too." He looked at me, his eyes flashing with anger. Was it him who caught the embroidered ball yesterday? I couldn't help but find it amusing. "Qinjing, if the ball had hit someone else, would you have reacted so strongly?" Qinjing pursed his lips but didn't say anything else. He bowed his head and took his leave. "Miss Shin, no matter what happens, I hope you stay safe. However, some people are destined not to live long." He turned and left. Ji Ningxing, who was standing nearby, was completely confused. He was quite good at comforting people. The gentleman who just left was yesterday's top scholar. Is he an old acquaintance of Miss Shin? "Miss Shin, please don't take it to heart." At that moment, I was more concerned about something else. I asked, "Mr. G, do you have any unfulfilled wishes?" He replied without hesitation, "To eat my fill and drink my fill." "Is that so?" I thought he wanted to achieve great things. Thinking about how he risked his life in battle for just a few meals, I felt a pang of sympathy. I suddenly realized that, having been reborn for only half a day, the man I had longed for in my previous life was no match for the man before me now. Was I too fickle? I suggested, "Since you don't want to marry, the Shin family won't force you. However, the Shin family could hire you." Ji Ningxing smiled, revealing a row of neat white teeth. "Miss Shin, you don't need to pity me. He's still so stubborn." I said again, "You don't need pity. But what about your family? Don't they need money?" Ji Ningxing finally showed some emotion, but he didn't directly agree to stay with the Shin family. "Thank you, Miss Shin. If you ever need me, I'll come knocking on your door for work." I smiled. "All right. I'll wait for you." Ji Ningxing paused, slightly turning his face away, as if he dared not look at me. The tall man was a bit shy. He scratched his head and replied, Ji Ningxing left. I had thought that the matter of throwing the embroidered ball would come to an end. But to my surprise, within 2 days, rumors spread like wildfire outside, saying that the Shin family had broken their word, refused to acknowledge the marriage, and looked down on the rough man. When I went out, People pointed and whispered about me. The Shin family's daughter dared to try to climb up the social ladder by marrying the top scholar? How could she possibly want a rough-looking man? That rough-looking man who caught the embroidered ball must have been sent away by the Shin family. How could he possibly refuse such a marriage? He must have been forced to leave. In short, I was labeled as despising poverty and loving power. Even the Shin family's business was affected. After much deliberation, I decided to visit Ji Ningxing's home. After some inquiries, the carriage finally stopped outside a small farmhouse. 3 thatched cottages. Extremely simple. But the courtyard was neatly arranged and not dirty. A circle of mint was planted on the mud wall. Green and lush. The breeze brought a cool, refreshing scent. In the courtyard, 2 children around 6 or 7 years old were writing. The 2 of them saw me and blinked their big, round eyes, looking curious. "I'm here to find your older brother." After briefly explaining my purpose, I noticed a few lines written in charcoal on the wall. The characters were bold and powerful, with smooth strokes. Looking neat and tidy, the 2 children were comparing the characters on the wall and carefully tracing them on the ground, stroke by stroke. I asked, "Who wrote the characters on the wall?" Ji Xiaodi looked proud. "They were written by my older brother. He is very good at reading. If it weren't for taking care of me and my sister, he would have already taken the imperial examinations." I couldn't help but sigh, gaining a new understanding of the future General Ji. I had the old woman bring out the prepared pastries. The 2 siblings from the Ji family were drooling with desire, but shook their heads and said, "Our older brother said we shouldn't accept gifts without merit, so we can't eat them." No wonder Ji Ningxing refused to marry me. He truly has noble character. And his younger brother and sister are no different. I became even more determined and said, "I am the daughter of the Shin family from the capital. Your older brother caught my embroidered ball. So I am now your older sister-in-law. An older sister-in-law is not an outsider. So you can certainly eat these pastries." The 2 children blinked, looked at the pastries, then looked at me, until a figure behind me cast a shadow over me. Ji Xiaodi shouted, "Big brother, when did you marry a sister-in-law?" I turned around and met Ji Ningxing's handsome face. His wheat-colored face flushed red in an instant, spreading all the way to his neck. Even his ears were no exception. What shocked me even more was that he was bare-chested, his muscular upper body fully exposed. Perhaps the sun was too bright, but I was so dazzled that I even noticed his chest muscles twitching. I froze. It had been decades since I last saw a man's body. After giving birth to a son and a daughter with Qinjing, I rarely had any intimate moments with him. He used work as an excuse, and I was busy managing the household and raising the 2 children. Qinjing never took a concubine and didn't like women to get close to him. So I never suspected anything. His youthful physique was truly overwhelming. Ji Ningxing must have been doing physical labor for years. His body was all muscle. He was holding a large bluefish in his hands. His proportions were also very attractive. Below his strong waist were 2 long legs. His trousers were rolled up to his knees, revealing muscular calves. My gaze followed the line down, landing on his bare feet. He noticed and instinctively curled his toes. Ji Ningxing cleared his throat. "Miss Shin, what brings you here?" I raised my eyes, and our gazes met. The man's clean-shaven face flushed with a hint of embarrassment. Having been married in my previous life, I was no naive young girl. I could tell he was shy. In the past, Qinjing would occasionally blush, but I didn't know when it started. In front of me, he had become as calm as a mountain in the face of a landslide. I spoke directly. "Mr. G, I've come to discuss our marriage." He was taken aback. I didn't give him a chance to object. This fine husband was someone I had to have. "If you won't think of yourself, at least think of your younger brother and sister." After we marry, I can send them to the best private school. Business people value interests above all else. And at this moment, fulfilling the marriage contract with Ji Ningxing aligns with my greatest interest. I want to change my own fate. And I want him to change his as well. I won't stop assisting any man in climbing the ranks just because of Qingjing. On the contrary, I fear nothing. Even if Ji Ningxing were to regret the marriage in the future, how would we know what kind of path this might lead to if we don't try? Besides, Ji Ningxing is truly very handsome. Only a woman who has been married before can understand how his physique is worth its weight in gold. Ji Ningxing wavered. Seeing this, I coaxed him gently. Brother Ji, rest assured. I won't force you to do anything. After we marry, I'll give you time to adjust. Until you're willing to be a true husband and wife. Ji Ningxing stared at me blankly. His pitch black, deep phoenix eyes exceptionally alluring. In my previous life, he never married until his death. Ji Shaoди interjected. Big brother, your sister-in-law is so beautiful. Just agree to it. Ji Xiaomei covered her mouth and giggled. But I knew Ji Ningxing was a man of principle. So I changed the subject to ease his mood and said, It's getting late. I'm hungry. I'd like to stay for a simple meal. Ji Ningxing didn't refuse. All right. It was clear that he was a good person. Ji Ningxing began cooking. He skillfully cleaned the large bluefish and picked some side dishes from the vegetable garden in the courtyard. His movements were practiced, and it was evident that he cooked frequently. Noticing my gaze, Ji Ningxing stiffened, the muscles near his butterfly bones tensing up. He turned his back to me, scratched his head, and went into the inner room to put on his outer garments. After that, he returned to the kitchen without saying a word. He cooked with utmost concentration, not once glancing at me. Yet I couldn't help but feel he was constantly keeping an eye on my movements. When the braised large bluefish was served, it truly whetted my appetite. The Shin family also ran a restaurant, and I had tasted all kinds of delicacies growing up. But I must admit, Ji Ningxing's culinary skills were exceptional. Even simple ingredients were transformed into a dish that was visually appealing, fragrant, and delicious. Ji Ningxing glanced at me, as if worried I might find it lacking. I smiled and said, Mr. Ji, you're truly amazing. The chefs at my family's restaurant can't compare to your skills. A man like you must have many women who like you. Luckily, I met you in time. Hearing this, Ji Ningxing was startled, his cheeks turning red like he'd eaten a mouthful of chili peppers. Ji Xiaomei interjected. The girl next door, Zhuangyuan, likes my older brother. But he said he has to take care of me and my older brother, so he can't marry her and can't burden others. Ji Ningxing turned aside, wiped the bowl and chopsticks again, then fetched a coarse earthenware cup and poured me a cup of tea. He brought out the best things in his home. I felt inexplicably moved. Through the figure of Ji Ningxing before me, I couldn't help but think of the General Ji from my previous life. That year, when the reinforcements arrived, he knelt on one knee, propping himself up with a long sword, refusing to fully kneel down. His body had been pierced by numerous swords, and he had long since ceased breathing. His iron-like resolve was the spirit of a hero. I invited the old woman to sit down and eat with us. Ji Ningxing felt a bit uneasy, so I personally picked a piece of fish for him and smiled, saying, Brother Ji, eat more. To be honest, I grew up by my father's side doing business, and I have a keen eye for people. I can guarantee that you will be a dragon among men in the future. Anyone who marries you will be truly blessed. You won't drag anyone down. Qingjing is a man who has read the classics. Back then, he accepted my financial support without hesitation. But even though Ji Ningxing has fallen so low, he still doesn't covet wealth and status. In my heart, I already know who is more important to me. Actually, Qinjing doesn't need to return those things. I won't cling to him. Merchants are best at weighing pros and cons, those who should be abandoned. I won't linger over. A momentary pang of sorrow is just that, momentary. It won't cost me my life. Ji Ningxing suddenly stopped, raised his gaze to look at me, and the next moment, he began coughing violently. I stood up and patted his back personally. This single pat made Ji Ningxing cough even more fiercely. His neck seemed to have turned red. He was just too pure, not even a bit flirtatious. Ji Ningxing said, "Thank you, Miss Shen. I'll do it myself." I didn't insist and sat back down. It had been raining heavily these past few days, and it looked like the weather was about to change. I deliberately chewed slowly. It seemed I had chosen the right day to go out. Soon, it started raining outside. The rural roads were muddy, and the carriage couldn't move forward easily. I felt a bit unreasonable, but I was determined, and I said, "It's raining. What should we do? I'm just a weak woman and might not be able to return to the city. I'll have to trouble you for the night." Ji Ningxing. I exchanged a glance with the old woman, who went to instruct the coachman and the guards to stay in the carriage. When we left this morning, I had specially prepared some dry rations and water, so my attendants could manage for the night. Ji Ningxing quickly got to work, first making the bed, then skillfully sewing the quilts. The room was small but tidy. Watching Ji Ningxing work, I noticed how dexterous his hands were. Not only did he write beautifully, but he also handled the embroidery needle with ease. After sewing a few stitches, he even used the needle tip to scratch his head. The old woman by my side also made the same gesture when doing needlework. His gentle demeanor was truly at odds with his sturdy build. I suddenly felt a sense of peaceful tranquility. Thinking back to my previous life, Qinjing had treated me kindly, but there seemed to be something missing between us. There was no sweetness or deep connection, and our daily conversations were always superficial. But as a rational person, I knew that such a marriage was already considered fortunate. At night, lying in the bleached white sheets, I faintly heard the creaking of the bedboards next to me. It was Ji Ningxing turning over quietly. He probably couldn't sleep but dared not make too much noise. So he turned over slowly. The old servant whispered in my ear, "Miss, I've observed Mr. Ji for a while. He's thoughtful and considerate. The only flaw is that his family is poor." I blinked and deliberately raised my voice slightly, saying, "I like Mr. Ji." The next morning, Ji Ningxing had dark circles under his eyes, clearly having not slept all night. Meeting his dark gaze, I threatened, "I've stayed at your home for a night. If you still refuse to marry me, it will ruin my reputation." Ji Ningxing opened his mouth but didn't get angry. He held a porcelain bowl in his hands, containing 2 freshly boiled eggs. They must have been prepared for my breakfast. The younger brother and sister of the Ji family stood nearby, staring at the eggs greedily, licking their lips. I guess these were probably the only 2 eggs the Ji family had. But the 2 of them just stood there quietly. Since their elder brother didn't speak, no one dared to fight over the food. I glanced at the tablet on the altar and walked straight up, clasping my hands together. "Uncle and Aunt, I am Xinyu from the Shen family. From today onward, I will take your children with me. From now on, I will take good care of them. You two can rest assured in heaven. After we marry, I will come back to pay my respects to you both." Ji Ningxing did not refuse. His eyes were slightly red, and he handed me the egg. "It's still warm. Eat quickly." I divided the egg between the younger brother and sister of the Ji family. The younger brother and sister are still growing. They should eat more. Once we return to the Shen family, you will all be my family. The 3 siblings of the Ji family had little clothing and no valuable possessions. So when they moved, each carried only a single bundle, making the move simple and convenient. As they were about to leave, Ji Ningxing glanced back at the thatched hut. I reached out and touched his left arm, deliberately feeling its strength and firmness. He shouldn't have lost his arm. In this lifetime, he would become a great general, and I would protect him. Ji Ningxing thought I was taking advantage of him. His body tensed up, and his muscle lines seemed to shift slightly. But he didn't push me away. He let me touch his left arm. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Brother Ji, don't be afraid. I've already said that once you fully accept me, we'll be true husband and wife. Ji Ningxing bit his lip and said nothing, only blushing deeply. Upon returning to the Shen household, my parents finally saw Ji Ningxing's face clearly and examined him up and down. No longer as disdainful as before. My mother chuckled happily. Not bad. He's a good catch. My father saw through my mother's thoughts at a glance. Cough, since you agree to the marriage, the Shen family will begin preparing for the wedding. The longer the wedding was delayed, the more detrimental it would be to the Shen family's reputation. Ji Ningxing froze for a moment before quickly regaining his composure. He remained humble yet dignified, bowing with clasped fists. This humble son-in-law greets his father-in-law and mother-in-law. I have nothing to offer in return, but I will do my best to honor and respect the 2 of you in the future. His younger brother, Shen Liang, was only 7 years old and in need of a playmate. He dragged Ji Xiaodi and Ji Xiaomei around the Shen family mansion, and the 3 children got along harmoniously, quickly becoming close. Ji Ningxing finally breathed a slight sigh of relief. Before the wedding, I personally measured Ji Ningxing's dimensions to prepare several sets of clothes. Ji Ningxing stood stiffly, daring not to move. After the measurements were taken, a thin layer of sweat broke out on his face, and his handsome face turned bright red. I couldn't resist and tiptoed to kiss his cheek. This was to help him adapt quickly. Having already been married once in my previous life, I no longer had the shy demeanor of a young girl. Ji Ningxing froze, and in an instant, his expression changed dramatically. First, he was stunned, then panicked, and finally, he couldn't help but feel a hint of joy. But he dared not show it too obviously. It was a chaotic scene. I took Ji Ningxing out shopping for items needed for the wedding. Unexpectedly, we ran into an old acquaintance. Qin Jing was standing beside a petite and delicate woman, who was Cui Zi. The 2 exchanged a smile, their eyes brimming with affection. Qin Jing said, "Ai, are you tired? Would you like to rest at a tea house?" Cui Zi blushed and nodded shyly. "Yes. You're so thoughtful, senior brother." I suddenly froze, remembering something. My name is Xinyu, and my childhood name was Rui. In my previous life, several years after our marriage, Qin Jing suddenly called me Ai in bed. I thought he was calling me by my childhood name, but it turned out he was calling Cui Zi. Cui Zi was the daughter of Qin Jing's mentor. In my previous life, Cui Zi had married into the Qi Wangfu and become the Qi Wang's concubine, and the child Qin Jing had risked his life to protect was the young master of the Qi Wangfu, Cui Zi's son. So that's how it was. The truth was now clear. At first, between Cui Zi and me, Qin Jing had chosen me. However, over the years, he gradually grew tired of me and turned his attention to other women. Human hearts are fickle. I have come to terms with it. Thus, I let it go with a smile. Now, looking back, the feelings between Qin Jing and me began to grow distant in the 3rd year of our marriage. But he was a man who valued appearances, so he never showed any flaws on the surface. This led me to mistakenly believe that our marriage was harmonious. At that moment, Qin Jing also noticed me. Cui Zi immediately grew alert and shot me a challenging glance. Qin Jing is now a highly sought-after figure. She believed she had defeated me. Qin Jing shifted his gaze from my face to Ji Ningxing beside me, his expression suddenly changing. Miss Shin, didn't you break off the engagement? Why is he here? This man was meddling in matters that didn't concern him. I replied, Ji Ningxing is now my fiancé. We will be officially married soon, so he is naturally by my side. Qin Jing's eyebrows furrowed tightly. You're crazy? Do you know what he? Qin Jing stopped herself, lest others notice something amiss. Both of us are reincarnated individuals, this matter must not be revealed. Qin Jing spoke with a sarcastic tone. Marriage is a lifelong commitment. Miss Shin should think carefully. Someone like a short-lived ghost certainly isn't a suitable partner. I retorted. Those who break their word are even less worthy of being called a good man. Qin Jing, who had been a powerful minister for most of his life, was arrogant to the extreme. He swept his sleeve aside and said, Humph. Miss Shin, I have spoken to you kindly, but you refuse to listen. In the future, you must take care of yourself. It was utterly baffling. I took hold of Ji Ningxing's broad hand and walked away. Ji Ningxing looked confused, and I reassured him. Brother Ji, don't overthink it. I said you're a good match for me. So you are. I'll make sure you live a long life. We'll have children and grandchildren, and grow old together. Ji Ningxing was easy to please. With just those words, he blushed and smiled. From that day onward, I arranged for 2 teachers, one in literature and one in martial arts, to instruct Ji Ningxing. Ji Ningxing was surprised. I explained, Brother Ji, though we are to marry, you are not merely my husband. You must first be yourself before you can be my husband. In the past, you neglected your studies for your younger siblings. Now is not too late to start anew. You have your strengths, and I have mine. By combining our strengths, we can achieve mutual success. Business people love to take risks. Ji Ningxing is a promising young man, and I intend to nurture him carefully. In the imperial martial arts examinations of our dynasty, candidates are not only tested on martial arts skills but also on various other criteria, such as archery, horsemanship, physical stature, and military strategy. Those who excel in the military examinations have an 80% chance of becoming military leaders. Joining the military through the examinations is far better than risking your life on the battlefield. Ji Ningxing heard this and his eyes welled up with tears. He was deeply moved. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down, and he nodded firmly. Yes, I will not disappoint you. Ji Ningxing worked very hard, and in just a few days, the bodyguard who was training with him could no longer keep up. The teachers of literature and martial arts told me that he is a rare talent who excels in both literature and martial arts. But he still needs to be polished. In the next few days, the whole city knew that the Shin family would fulfill the marriage agreement, and shops everywhere resumed business. On that day, I returned home and personally brought tea and snacks to Ji Ningxing. Seeing him bare-chested in training, every muscle defined, not an ounce of excess, I felt an inexplicable thirst and drank a cup of tea first. Ji Ningxing saw me, his eyes burning with intensity, yet a touch of shyness. But he still walked toward me. You're back? Are you tired? I raised my arm to wipe the sweat off his forehead, and he bent slightly so I could reach him. At such close proximity, our breath mingled, and I found myself fixated on Ji Ningxing's lips. His lips were perfectly full, and his Adam's apple bobbed slightly. His lips almost brushed against my nose. We both froze for a moment before quickly stepping back. I asked, Are you injured? Ji Ningxing scratched his head. Just a minor scratch from an arrow. It's nothing. I suddenly didn't know what to say. Not knowing where to look, I picked up a chestnut candy from the tray and stuffed it into his mouth. I heard that eating candy can replenish your energy. Ji Ningxing had a piece of candy in his mouth. And his words were slurred. I'm in good shape. Am I overthinking this? Why did he emphasize that? I turned and walked away. My mind filled with chaotic thoughts. After all, I've lived a lifetime, I'm no longer a naive young girl. There were only 7 days left until the wedding. On that day, I went to the jewelry shop to check the accounts. But an unexpected visitor arrived. Seeing Qin Jing again, he was now the favored disciple of the Prime Minister. Qin Jing approached me directly, completely disregarding my reputation, and whispered, I'm giving you one chance to cancel the wedding. In a year or 2, I'll marry you as a concubine. I was so angry I laughed. Does he think he's still the powerful minister from his previous life? Even if I'm the daughter of a merchant, I wouldn't willingly marry him. Qin Jing said matter-of-factly. You were used to being the wife of a powerful official in your previous life. How could you be willing to marry down? Besides, Ji Ningxing won't live long. Do you want to be a widow? I said. Don't forget. I was a widow in my previous life too. Qin Jing froze. I didn't back down. Furthermore, since both of us can be reborn, if you want to swap lives, I can too, and Ji Ningxing's life can be changed as well. I turned to leave, but Qin Jing grabbed my wrist. Stay. Did I say you could leave? He was truly laughable. I raised my other hand and slapped him across the face. You're just a scholar in the Hanlin Academy. What official authority do you have to intimidate me? Let go. Qin Jing was humiliated and immediately turned cold. Xin Yu. Why are you being so stubborn? Marrying Cui Rui wouldn't harm either of us. But if I marry you, there will be many obstacles in my official career. I was so angry I laughed. Why was Qin Jing so successful in his previous life? It was all because the Shin family had enough silver to grease the wheels. He, on the other hand, thought that marrying into the Shin family would hinder his official career. Of course, marrying Cui Rui would be the best choice for him. I closed my eyes and looked at him again, and even the slightest trace of nostalgia vanished. I truly regretted being buried with him in the afterlife. I wished I could rise from the dead tonight. Let her go. A deep voice echoed. Ji Ningxing took 3 steps in 2, walking toward me. After staying at the Shin family for several days, his skin had grown fairer, and his silk robes made him look even more distinguished. As soon as Ji Ningxing arrived, he pushed Qin Jing aside and wrapped his long arms around me. Qin Jing stumbled backward several times before finally regaining his balance. Ji Ningxing wore an expression of protective tenderness. He was extremely aggressive. I felt a sense of security. At that moment, I trusted not only my fiancé but also the great hero who would soon emerge. In my previous life, Ji Ningxing had risked everything to protect the citizens of the city, defending the city gates until the very end. But Qin Jing died to save Cui Zi's child, his own son and daughter. Yet he was quite distant from them. Who was selfish? Who was the hero? Was now crystal clear. I deliberately wrapped my arms around Ji Ningxing's waist and pouted. Big brother Ji. Thank goodness you came. In my previous life, Qin Jing had told me he preferred proper young ladies. So I behaved cautiously in everything I did, pretending to be graceful and composed, hiding all my girlish thoughts. But deep down, I was lively and carefree. Qin Jing was furious, as if I had betrayed him, shouting, You! How dare you! Ji Ningxing was a man of action. He immediately ordered the Shin family's bodyguards. Get them out of here! From now on, anyone who dares to bully the young lady will be thrown out of the house. The bodyguards were taken aback, but I gave them a glance, and they reacted. Yes. Master. The word master made Ji Ningxing's face turn red. Qin Jing was driven out. I still held on to Ji Ningxing's waist, gazing at his handsome face just inches away. My thoughts stirred, and I tiptoed to kiss his chin. The man couldn't hide his smile, revealing his snow-white teeth. The servants in the shop giggled quietly. Soon, my men brought back some unpleasant news. Miss, we're being watched. Earlier, someone was lurking outside. I followed them and discovered they were servants from the Cui mansion. The Cui family sent people to watch me? Cui Derin wouldn't bother targeting a merchant's daughter like me. The only possibility was that Cui Rui saw me as a rival. The common folk don't dare to confront officials. If Cui Rui is targeting me, it could truly bring trouble upon me. I decided to act decisively. I ordered my men to beat drums and gongs, drawing the attention of countless people on the long street. I then publicly declared, I, Xin Yu, am transferring this jewelry shop to my husband today. From this day forward, my husband will be the shopkeeper of this store. The Xin family had numerous properties, giving up one shop was hardly a sacrifice. What I wanted was for everyone to know that Ji Ningxing was my husband. It was also a statement to Cui Rui that I would not compete with her for a man. That day, I even took Ji Ningxing around town, praising him to everyone we met. My husband, Xin Yu, is as handsome as Panin. By evening, Ji Ningxing had been coaxed into acting like a child. And whenever he looked at me, he would squint his eyes and smile. I noticed that there was no trace of self-doubt or timidity left in him, replaced by pride and openness born from my admiration for him. When the carriage arrived at the Xin mansion, as Ji Ningxing helped me down, I kissed his forehead. Ji Ningxing bit his lip, scratched his head, and his chest rose and fell slightly. Listening closely, I could hear his breathing was irregular. I wrapped my arms around his neck and whispered in his ear, "There's someone watching outside the alley. Play along with me so that no one causes trouble before the wedding." Having the ability to resolve issues doesn't make one a master. A true master eliminates all possible complications before they arise. I must keep Cui Rui away from me. Ji Ningxing was undoubtedly a smart man, he understood immediately. But he seemed at a loss for how to proceed, staring at me blankly. I was getting impatient. So I kissed his lips again. And Lu, standing nearby, widened her eyes and coughed. "Miss. Master. You two must be careful. You haven't officially married yet." Within 2 days, the news of my relationship with Ji Ningxing spread like wildfire. Everyone knew that I and Ji Ningxing were inseparable. People said I was infatuated with his appearance and physique. The rumors boiled down to, Xinyu truly lives up to her reputation as the daughter of a merchant. She's so shallow. Making out in public like that. It's utterly improper. And she's moved on way too quickly. However, some people just loved hearing about the romantic rumors between me and Ji Ningxing. Of course, there were also those who joked that I wasn't worthy of the new top scholar, but that I was a perfect match for Ji Ningxing. After all this, I soon realized that the Cui family had stopped sending people to watch me. Nevertheless, I remained cautious. Send someone to keep an eye on the Xin mansion and all our shops. Report any unusual activity immediately. Yes. Miss Xin. The day of the wedding arrived in the blink of an eye. My father followed my instructions, hosting a 3-day banquet and scattering copper coins generously. This was the perfect opportunity to further enhance the Xin family's reputation. As night fell, after the ceremony, I was escorted to the bridal chamber. When Ji Ningxing arrived, Anil led the maids out in a line, giggling mischievously. Ji Ningxing wore a bright red wedding robe, tall and slender. I stared for a moment and couldn't help but compliment him. "Husband, you look so handsome." Ji Ningxing stammered. You're also beautiful." I teased him. "Husband, I know you're not used to it yet. Why don't we sleep in separate beds first? I pointed to the bedding on the footstool, gesturing for him to sleep on the floor. Ningxing opened his mouth, his face a mix of emotions. He did as I said. I went to the bathroom to wash up. When I came out, I deliberately wore a sheer, lightweight nightgown, with the inner robe barely visible. Ningxing had already made a bed on the floor. He closed his eyes, pretending to be asleep, but I could clearly see his Adam's apple moving. I approached him, knelt down, and woke him up. Husband, we haven't drunk the wedding wine yet. The moment Ningxing opened his eyes, his gaze froze. I knew I was beautiful and had a graceful figure, and I knew that Ningxing had feelings for me. But I couldn't let go. I took his hand and helped him up, guiding him step by step. We each held a cup of wine, our arms intertwined. I took a small sip and urged him, drink. Ningxing had never drunk wine before. After taking a sip, his eyes began to wander. Shen. Miss Shen, you're truly beautiful, the man said blankly. I tilted my face and asked with a smile. So, will you sleep on the floor tonight? Or join me on the bed? Ningxing moved his lips. His eyes filled with longing. The next moment, I watched in shock as 2 streams of blood flowed from his nose. I immediately wiped it away. But before I knew it, we both ended up lying on the bed together. Ningxing propped himself up above me. His arm strength was incredible. He could maintain his position without touching me at all. In Ningxing's pitch-black eyes, I saw a flicker of flame. I murmured, Ningxing, we are already husband and wife. I grabbed the hem of his robe and slowly pulled it down. He was like a prisoner in my hands, unable to escape, and could only follow my lead. The spring breeze fanned the flames, and there was no stopping us. I had thought everything was under control. After all, I had some experience. But unexpectedly, something happened. I was covered in a thin layer of sweat, and Ningxing felt deeply guilty, apologizing frantically. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. It's all my fault. I felt a bit dazed. The difference between men and men is really that big. I knew it wasn't Ningxing's fault. I wrapped my arms around his neck and comforted him. It's not your fault. If it didn't work this time, then let's wait 2 more days. He was in a hurry. Tomorrow will definitely work. But I backed down. It's okay. In 2 days, we'll both have time to adjust. It was me who couldn't adjust. That night, Ningxing quietly went to the bathroom, and I pretended not to notice. The next day, my mother asked me if we had consummated the marriage, and I looked helpless. There's no rush. Ningxing became extremely attentive. Besides attending to his parents, he spent his days studying and practicing martial arts. Every evening, he would go to the shop to fetch me back to the mansion. After 3 consecutive days, his intentions were clear, and I dared not meet his gaze. Wife, what do you think? Shall we try again tonight? I suddenly felt a wave of heat, but I was too cowardly to refuse. So I made an excuse to decline. On this day, my close friend Zhu Haitang came to visit. She was 2 years older than me, the concubine's daughter of the Shaoqing family. We had become friends after a big fight years ago. After the incident, I proposed reconciliation. I promised to help her become wealthy, and she agreed to assist me. Over the years, we had become inseparable. She had already married and had her hair styled like a married woman. Zhu Haitang glanced at Ningxing and whispered to me, you? How is your husband? We're close friends, you can't lie to me. To be honest, I'm truly envious of you. You too. Just got married. At least. She leaned in closer and held up 5 fingers. I immediately understood, feeling rather embarrassed. Zhu Haitang was startled, reading my expression instantly. You haven't consummated the marriage yet, have you? I confessed my secret. Zhu Haitang's expression was priceless, excited, envious, and tinged with a hint of regret. You're like this. She murmured a few words in my ear. Some wine to liven things up can ease the pain. I had intended to delay it for a while, but after she mentioned it, I couldn't help but secretly anticipate it. As night fell, after I had bathed, Ji Ningxing finally entered the bathroom. He always said that he practiced martial arts every day and sweated, so using the water I had bathed in was just right. Therefore, he always let me bathe first. Listening to the sound of water in the bathroom, I poured myself a few cups of wine to get in the mood. Ji Ningxing didn't need to drink. I always felt that he didn't need anything. Auxiliary. The wine was indeed potent. Before Ji Ningxing came out, I was already feeling hot and restless. I was still conscious, but at that moment, my mind was filled with thoughts of Ji Ningxing's muscular physique. In my previous life, everyone said I was lucky to marry Qinjing, but now I feel that in my previous life, eating wasn't that great. I couldn't help but head toward the bathroom. Ji Ningxing froze in the bathtub, staring at me without blinking. I stared back at him, but my hands didn't stop moving, and I slipped off the sheer nightgown I was wearing. Ji Ningxing's Adam's apple bobbed, and his eyes darkened. I acted on instinct, in this life. I've probably lived authentically, though perhaps a bit improper. I leaned in, lifted his chin, and said, Ji Ningxing, you're mine. In the blink of an eye, I was lifted into the bathtub. Ji Ningxing's arm strength was truly formidable. What happened afterward was only natural. I forgot the exact time, only remembering that I slept and woke up repeatedly. In my deep sleep, I couldn't help but think about how different men could be from one another. The next day, the sun was already high in the sky. When I woke up, Ji Ningxing was nowhere to be seen. Anil was grinning from ear to ear, teasing me. Miss, you cried all night last night. I shot her a glance. Shut up. I had already instructed Anil to prepare the herbal soup earlier. It was a special concoction purchased at great expense to prevent pregnancy, so it wouldn't harm my body. Both Ji Ningxing and I were still young, with a long journey ahead of us. It wasn't the right time to have a child. When the time is right, I will wait until the Shen family is strong enough and Ji Ningxing can protect both of us before having children. I asked, where is he? Anil knew exactly who I was talking about. She smiled and said, the young master left the house early this morning. He probably didn't sleep at all last night. He went to the training ground to run a few laps, then paid his respects to the master and mistress. After that, he went to practice martial arts. Right now, he's studying. I couldn't help but be amazed by Ji Ningxing's stamina. I was still sore and weak all over, but he was full of energy. Natural talent really makes a difference. No wonder in his previous life, he rose from a commoner to become a general. But by evening, I still hadn't seen Ji Ningxing. It seemed like he was avoiding me. It wasn't until nightfall that I pretended to be asleep, and he quietly entered the room. Ji Ningxing stood on the footstool for a moment, then leaned down to gaze at me. I suddenly opened my eyes and wrapped my arms around his neck. Why are you avoiding me? Ji Ningxing's cheeks flushed. I'm sweaty. I'm dirty. I asked again. You haven't answered. Say, why are you avoiding me? Ji Ningxing looked apologetic. Last night, it was my fault. I was wrong. Next time, I'll be more careful. As he spoke, he pulled out a small porcelain bottle from his robe. Blushing, This is what I bought from the herbalist. The doctor said it can alleviate discomfort. We stared at each other, the atmosphere growing tense again. Ji Ningxing suddenly pried my hands away, stood up, and turned his back to me. I'll sleep on the floor tonight. You rest well, my wife. From that day onward, Ji Ningxing became even more diligent. My father gradually changed his opinion of him. He had seen Ji Ningxing's writings and his archery skills, and was so moved he shed tears. My own son doesn't like reading or martial arts, but my son-in-law is so talented. For the next half-month, Ji Ningxing slept on the floor. He would come to the shop every day to pick me up. Aside from not sleeping together, everything else was fine. One day, Zhu Haitang invited me for tea. Her husband worked in the Ministry of Personnel and was well informed about court affairs. Zhu Haitang couldn't keep her mouth shut and blurted out, The new top scholar has offended someone in court. He's overly arrogant and doesn't even respect the Grand Secretary. Daring to argue with him directly. What do you think? Is there something wrong with him? Zhu Haitang pointed to her own head. I just laughed. Chen Jing had spent half his life as a cabinet minister in his previous life. Those in high positions for too long cannot control their arrogance. He could no longer tolerate others looking down on him. Zhu Haitang continued. His mentor, Cui Derin, scolded him harshly. As a result, Cui Zi couldn't even leave the mansion to see him. I can't help but think that not marrying the top scholar was a good thing for you. By the way, have you consummated your marriage with Ji Ningxing yet? Tell me quickly. How is his stamina? How many times did you do it last night? I was speechless. She was even more reckless than me, who had been reborn once. I slowly extended my 5 fingers. Zhu Haitang widened her eyes and immediately began to criticize her husband. I regret it so much. Why don't we swap husbands? Zhu Haitang loved reading storybooks and had no ulterior motives. She was always making things up in private. But in public, she would put on the airs of a proper young lady. I shook my head. No way. These words were overheard by Ji Ningxing. He walked over with his back straight, his perfect physique giving him the aura of a great general. He added, We can't swap. Zhu Haitang rolled her eyes, waved her hand, and took her leave first. I won't disturb your newlywed bliss. I'll reserve the arranged marriage for myself. But my child has to be born first. You two can take your time having children. This guy always loves to make things up. Ji Ningxing's ears turned bright red. I could see right through his little scheme. That night, Ji Ningxing started off cautiously, but eventually lost control. Fortunately, I had already managed to adapt. Seeing that I was no longer unconscious, he grew bolder and even learned to say a few risk remarks. What do you think? My wife. Do you like it? If you don't say anything, it means you agree. Soon. The end of the year was approaching, and it was time for Ji Ningxing to show his true colors. In my previous life, it was also around this time. I went out to check on the orchard on the outskirts of the city and happened to come across the Empress Dowager who was trapped. That day, heavy snow had blocked the roads, and the Empress Dowager was returning to the palace from Fahua Temple. My carriage was stocked with hot water, snacks, and some emergency supplies. The Empress Dowager and I spent the night in the carriage. The next day at noon, the snow had melted slightly, and we managed to continue our journey. Thanks to my efforts, Chen Jing was finally recognized by the emperor. But he only knew that I had saved the Empress Dowager's life, not the details of how I did it. He also firmly believed that it was because he was the top scholar that the emperor had broken protocol to promote him, sparing him the hardships of serving in the Hanlin Academy. Now that I think about it, Chen Jing didn't really like me in his previous life either. It was just that, at the time, I was his best option. Later, once he had attained high rank and power, he felt I was no longer worthy of him. He then turned his affections toward the noblewoman Cui Rui. In truth, he didn't love anyone, he only loved himself. This time, I had Ji Ningxing prepare everything in advance, so that we could rescue the Empress Dowager at the crucial moment. Everything went as planned, and the timing was perfect. 2 days later, the imperial edict arrived at the Shin mansion. The emperor, grateful to Ji Ningxing for saving the Empress Dowager, summoned him to the palace and asked what reward he desired. He followed my instructions and did not ask for any gold, silver, or money, but only requested that the emperor allow him to participate in the martial arts examination next March. This way, he would not have to spend another 3 years slowly earning the qualifications for the martial arts examination. The emperor asked him the reason. Ji Ningxing followed my instructions and replied, "The rise and fall of the nation is the responsibility of every citizen. As a commoner, I also wish to contribute my humble efforts. Our dynasty's military is weak, and though the emperor is a wise ruler, the foreign enemies are too powerful." Ji Ningxing's words touched the emperor's heart. The emperor granted his request on the spot. Upon returning home, Ji Ningxing embraced me from behind, burying his face in my neck. He was quite clingy and unrestrained in private. Ji Ningxing was passionate about intimacy, and once I grew accustomed to it, he constantly invented new ways to please me. Compared to my previous life, my relationship with Qinjing barely qualified as a true marriage. Ji Ningxing called out to me, "My wife, how do you know so many things? You are truly my lucky star. Since meeting you, I finally feel like a real person." In truth, Ji Ningxing was very eloquent. He simply appeared reserved and taciturn in front of others. Whatever I said, he believed. I replied, "I dreamed it, so I let you try." I never expected it would actually save the Empress Dowager. Ji Ningxing teased my earlobe, and I almost lost my balance. He whispered softly, "I will never let you down. Once I achieve great things, I will keep you by my side forever. No one will be able to take you away, and no one will dare to bully you." My body went weak. Ji Ningxing picked me up horizontally, placed me in his arm, and weighed me a few times. "It's cold today. Let me warm you up." I thought to myself, it's not even dark yet. This morning wasn't it just? Is this ever going to end? 3 months later, the day of the martial arts exam arrived. I embroidered an eagle on Ji Ningxing's robe. Ji Xiaomei saw it and burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha. Sister-in-law, your eagle looks like a messy little chick." I had no words to respond. I'm not very skilled at needlework. But Ji Ningxing examined it carefully for a long time. "Your hands are so skillful. I really like it." As he was about to leave, he suddenly hugged me and whispered in my ear, "Wife, I'll tell you a secret. Actually, I've always hated Qinjing for having once occupied your heart. But it won't be long before I surpass him. I'll make sure he never appears before you again. This guy, where did all his shyness and timidity go? He's becoming more and more domineering." The military examination of this dynasty has been revised several times, and now it lasts 3 days. I arranged for my trusted bodyguards to protect Ji Ningxing closely, just in case. For the next 3 days, my parents got up early every morning to worship the god of wealth and pray for their son-in-law's success. I couldn't help but be surprised. What? Does the god of wealth even concern himself with such matters? I have confidence in Ji Ningxing, but I'm still anxious. 3 days later, a swift horse galloped to the gates of the Shin mansion, bringing a message from the county office. "Congratulations, Mr. Shin. Congratulations, Mr. Shin. The emperor has personally selected your son-in-law as the new martial arts champion. Since ascending the throne, the emperor had placed great emphasis on martial arts, viewing the martial arts examination with great importance. The selection process was rigorous and results were announced swiftly. Throughout history, only the martial arts champion of this dynasty could be exempted from the usual path to officialdom, unlike in other dynasties where one had to first serve as an imperial guard for several years. The martial arts champion personally selected by the emperor naturally had a bright future ahead. Father was overjoyed and immediately ordered the steward to bring out silver ingots to reward the messenger. The servants bowed and scraped. Their attitude toward the Shin family completely transformed. The mother was overjoyed, slapping the table with her palm, causing the cups and saucers to tremble. "You're truly my wise son-in-law. My son was born with good fortune. Though he couldn't marry a literary champion, now we have a martial arts champion instead." Ji Ningxing had not returned yet. He had to attend a banquet hosted by the palace. Everyone in the Shin household received rewards. It was not until midnight that Ji Ningxing returned. I had already gone to bed. His hand slipped under the blankets, wrapping me in his arms from behind, with a hint of drunkenness and a touch of grievance. "My wife. I missed you so much. It's only been a few days since we last saw each other. It can't be that bad." He turned me over so we were facing each other. The man had already removed his outer garments. His eyes were red, and he confessed his feelings to me. "Wife. You don't know. At the banquet today, someone tried to force a woman on me. I was so annoyed and disgusted. Wife. You must protect me. He made me laugh. He was so powerful, surely no woman could force herself on him." At that moment, Ji Ningxing exuded a touch of youthful vigor, which I found quite charming. He gazed at me adoringly. "My wife. You're so beautiful. Like a peach. I'll go wash up right away." He hurriedly got out of bed and rushed to the bathroom. He knew I valued cleanliness, and after each intimate moment, he would always wash himself voluntarily. The next morning, when I woke up, it was already bright outside. I opened my eyes and looked around in confusion. Last night had been a bit wild. Fortunately, I have thick skin. Ji Ningxing was at the height of his power in the court. After he once performed a shoulder throw on a woman, no other woman dared to approach him. Ji Ningxing even declared publicly that only his wife could touch him. The entire court knew that the martial arts champion was a wife-obsessed man. He actually liked this title. At night in the bedroom, he insisted on playing the role of a servant. I couldn't resist and kicked him with my feet. Ji Ningxing laughed softly. "Wife. Confess honestly. Did you also desire me from the beginning?" "All right. I admit it. I was tempted by him." One day, Qin Jing came to the shop again. He had grown thinner, and the arrogance in his eyes had vanished. I had already heard that he was about to be transferred. Without anyone to support him, it would take him 3 or 5 years to return to the capital. Unlike in his previous life, where he rose swiftly after passing the imperial exams, Cui Darin had already abandoned him and chosen a new successor. However, the reason he was transferred so quickly was likely due to Ji Ningxing's contributions. Ji Ningxing was now the emperor's favorite, and his political views aligned perfectly with the emperor's intentions. He wasn't a completely useless brute, he had some insight into many matters. Ji Ningxing is also a jealous person, and he still occasionally gets jealous over Qin Jing. I looked indifferent. "What do you want?" Qin Jing smiled bitterly. "Xin Yu. Everyone who is kind to me has an ulterior motive. I used to think that you were approaching me with a purpose, wanting to climb the social ladder by associating with me. I didn't know how to respond. I am a merchant, naturally. I have had such thoughts before. But, once upon a time, I had genuine feelings." Qin Jing continued to ramble on. "Cui Ru sees that I haven't achieved anything yet, so she doesn't even mention marriage anymore. Those good-for-nothing officials in the court have repeatedly rejected my political views. What do they think they are? I finally understood why Chen Jing had been so defeated in life. He was too arrogant and self-righteous. His reckless ambition made him unable to stay grounded, naturally drawing the envy of many. Those who stick their necks out are bound to be hated. Chen Jing's eyes suddenly grew moist. I returned to this life with the intention of remarrying. But Xin Yu, I never wronged you in my previous life. No one can love someone forever, eventually. Feelings fade. Do you think Ji Ningxing won't grow tired of me? He'll eventually be like me, shifting his affections to another woman. I shrugged. So what? I can't stop believing in people just because you've moved on. I'm not that weak. I'm willing to take a chance once. And I'll take it again. Even if that day comes. I'll let him go. At least for now. I'm happy. I also enjoy the joy that comes from mutual affection. Chen Jing stood there in shock for a moment. Then gave a bitter laugh. As he turned away. His slender figure looked a bit dejected. Just then, Ji Ningxing walked over with long strides. He didn't notice anyone else. Staring straight at me, and deliberately bumped into Chen Jing's shoulder. Chen Jing stumbled several steps and nearly fell. But Chen Jing did not argue, his face even showed a hint of shame. Ji Ningxing, with a sly smile, wrapped his arms around me and shouted, "Wife, let me take you home for dinner." Another year-end approached. With foreign enemies at the border and military affairs urgent, Ji Ningxing volunteered to lead the troops. The commander-in-chief was already elderly, so he took the position of commander, with Ji Ningxing as one of his most capable generals. Before the army set off, I rushed to the palace to see the emperor and personally presented nearly 80% of the Shin family's assets as military provisions. The emperor was taken aback and asked me, "Shin, sure, you're quite willing to sacrifice so much. Is it for your husband?" I shook my head and replied, "Your Majesty, this servant is not doing this for my husband. Without a country, there can be no home. Only when the nation is at peace can the Shin family's business thrive. I am but a commoner, yet I know that the rise and fall of the nation is the responsibility of every citizen." The emperor was as emotional as my father, his eyes reddening on the spot. Good. Good. Well said, the rise and fall of the nation is the responsibility of every citizen. The Shin family's silver was converted into military rations and quickly transported to the border. Too much money isn't always a good thing. The Shin family has no powerful backers, they might not be able to hold on to it. This is something my parents and I have always understood. Moreover, the court is short on military rations. And the treasury is empty. Eliminating the barbarians as soon as possible will prevent Ji Ningxing from repeating the tragedy of his previous life. Contributing some silver and money is a threefold benefit. I then waited in the capital for news. At first, I occasionally received letters from Ji Ningxing. Half a year passed, and the letters stopped coming. I began to grow anxious. Could it be that Ji Ningxing would repeat the mistakes of his past life? Several months later, dire news arrived from the border. The general of the Imperial Guard had been severely wounded and was in a coma. And Ji Ningxing was nowhere to be found. Winter was approaching, and in his previous life, Ji Ningxing had lost his left arm during the season. I couldn't sit still, so I gathered dozens of bodyguards, hired masters from a martial arts school, loaded several carts with supplies, and set off for the border immediately. Along the way, I was filled with anxiety, praying to the heavens countless times that Ji Ningxing would be granted a peaceful end. I needed him, and the Great Wei dynasty needed him. Just as our group was about to reach the border, a blizzard struck. Someone blocked the path ahead, closing in step by step. My heart leaped into my throat, and everyone began to brace themselves. However, the moment I recognized the person's eyes, I screamed and jumped off the cart, rushing toward him. Only Jiningshing's eyes were visible, but I recognized him instantly by his build and his eyes. Jiningshing opened his cloak first. Seeing me rush toward him, he spread his arms wide, then wrapped me in it. The guards saw this and realized. Master, we've finally found you. Jiningshing took me to their camp. It turned out that the disappearance was just a strategy. The general of the state was indeed injured and unconscious. Jiningshing had deliberately feigned death to lull the enemy into a false sense of security. Inside the tent, a fire was burning, and I curled up under the blankets, able to smell Jiningshing's scent. He knelt half-bent, using both hands to grip my feet tightly, rubbing them constantly. Seeing that my toes were swollen and frostbitten, the man said nothing. After a moment, he finally murmured, "I miss you. I miss you so much." I replied, "I miss you too." However, I quickly changed the subject. "By the way, I brought some medicinal herbs and ginseng that can prolong life. Perhaps the general of the state can be saved." Jiningshing embraced me tightly, as if he wanted to press me into his very bones. The man's deep voice echoed from above. "My wife, you always appear before me at the most critical moments. Do you think the heavens sent you to save me?" Jiningshing ordered someone to prepare medicine for the general. That night, he refused to take off his clothes. When I noticed something amiss, I forcefully pulled open his collar and saw the horrific wound on his left arm. Though it had scabbed over, the scar was still terrifying. I burst into tears. "Does it hurt? Does it hurt a lot?" It looked as though his entire left arm had nearly been severed. Jiningshing smiled faintly and said in a hoarse voice, "My wife, kiss me, and I won't feel the pain anymore." I wiped away my tears and kissed the scar on his left arm. Thankfully, his left arm was saved. It seemed that because of my rebirth, the course of many events had changed. In this life, Jiningshing was a high-ranking official of the court, with subordinates to protect him, and he had also trained in martial arts. So he wasn't as tragic as in his previous life. For now, I stayed in the camp. Jiningshing's plan also began to unfold, and the great battle started quietly. By the time the enemy noticed, our army was already advancing like a bamboo shoot breaking through the ground. Half a month later, the general of the Imperial Guard awoke. Jiningshing had taken his place as commander-in-chief and led the army straight to the enemy's heart. The general of the Imperial Guard was greatly relieved. "Excellent! I can rest assured that there is a worthy successor." The general of the Imperial Guard had lost all his sons in battle, and his only daughter was the current empress. The sky cleared, and the snow melted. On the way back to the capital in triumph, several of Jiningshing's deputy generals kept praising their superior in front of me. "General Ji is worth 100 men. Yes. Once in battle, General Ji rode 3 horses to death. That's right. General Ji is invincible. The cook in the army is infatuated with the general. Unfortunately, the general only has eyes for you. Madam, you must treat the general well." Back then, his left arm was almost severed, and when he was unconscious, he kept calling out your name. "By the way, when will the general and the empress have a child? How many do you plan to have?" These people sure are nosy. Sometimes I rode a horse with Jiningshing, and when I got tired, I returned to the carriage. Jiningshing also comes to the carriage at night. He easily gets emotional, and I feel uneasy, but I dare not make a scene. "Don't move around. Someone might hear us." Jiningshing sighed helplessly. "But my wife, whenever I see you, I just..." He started saying lewd things again. He also mentioned that during their first meeting, he had actually wanted to stay and become a son-in-law. But he was penniless and feared he would be a burden on such a fine lady. "My wife, on the night I first stayed at the Shin mansion, I dreamed of you. I quickly covered his mouth. Don't say any more. Finally back in the capital, the citizens welcomed the soldiers home in triumph. Ji Ningxing had me sit in front of him, and the two of us rode a single horse down Zhuke Street. Ji Ningxing whispered in my ear, "Now it's settled. The whole city knows we're husband and wife." The general of the state was highly praised by the emperor. The emperor also wanted to promote him, so he took this opportunity to bestow upon him the title of General of the Eternal Victory and granted him a general's mansion. The Shin family also moved in together. Now, Ji Xiaodi, Ji Xiaomei, and Shin Liang are inseparable. I had only enjoyed a few days of peace when the capital city was swept up in a craze for the storybooks about me and Ji Ningxing. I even bought a copy for myself. Even after living 2 lifetimes, I was so embarrassed by the content of the storybooks that I had nowhere to hide. How could they make up such things? The storybook authors seemed to have eavesdropped on our conversations, even claiming that Ji Ningxing had multiple encounters in a single night. The settings were all there: the dressing table, the windowsill, the bathtub, the backyard garden. I sighed in exasperation. I wouldn't dare go out to do business anymore. That evening, when Ji Ningxing returned home, he had a copy of the storybook tucked under his arm. He looked serious. "Wife, this storybook might be worth taking a cue from." I blushed fiercely. A few years later, every time Ji Ningxing went to battle, he returned victorious. I became a first-rank noblewoman. This honor was not merely because Ji Ningxing was my husband. The Shin family contributed nearly 80% of their wealth to the imperial court each year, refusing to become merchants who could rival the wealth of a nation. This was a matter of principle, and also a means of self-preservation. On the Mid-Autumn Festival of my 40th year, the imperial court hosted a banquet. Ji Ningxing led me into the palace. Our eldest son was already as tall as him, handsome and graceful. I saw Qin Jing, who had just returned to the capital to take up his post. Even though he had finally returned to the capital, he had only been given a 5th-rank position of little importance. Climbing higher in his career would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. He had offended many powerful officials and was stubborn and self-willed. Even with his memories from his previous life, his political career could never compare to what it had been before. Qin Jing found an opportunity to meet me. "Do you hate me? Do you wish I were dead?" I shook my head and smiled. "No. Letting you live may be a greater punishment. But I no longer care about your affairs." Ji Ningxing quickly came over. He couldn't see me and was frantically searching everywhere. The man walked over confidently and naturally took my hand. He was now a first-class nobleman and didn't even bother to acknowledge Qin Jing. "My wife. Let me take you home." I smiled and nodded. Passing by Qin Jing, "The road ahead is long, but holding hands with my beloved for a lifetime can spare us much of the suffering of this world." Behind us, Qin Jing let out a low sob. But it had nothing to do with me. 21. Epilogue. Ji Ningxing died at the age of 30. He went to the underworld, where the king of the underworld told him that his life had been virtuous and complete, and that the heavens would grant him one final wish. Ji Ningxing suddenly thought of someone. Xinjiayu, the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Upon their first meeting, Xinyu mistook him for a beggar and handed him silver coins, a steamed bun, and a chestnut candy. He was suffering from heatstroke that day and had no strength to refuse. He ate the steamed bun and kept the silver coins, using them to pay his younger brother's tuition fees. He treasured the chestnut candy, never bringing himself to eat it. When they met again, Xinyu did not recognize him. His younger sister was suffering from a cold, so he carried her on his back and sought medical help. Xinyu arranged for a doctor to treat her and gave him medicine. At that moment, Ji Ningxing thought to himself, how could there be such a kind-hearted woman in this world? The third time they met, Xinyu threw a silk ball to select a husband, and Ji Ningxing stood at the street corner, mesmerized by her. A strange emotion began to stir in his heart, disrupting his peace of mind. But he knew that they were from different worlds, and their paths were never meant to cross. By the fourth meeting, Ji Ningxing was desperately defending the city. Xinyu personally led a group of guards to deliver supplies. Before leaving the city, she said to him, "General, thank you for holding